Well, hello there. So we are back, and it is it's nearing the end of the book here. I keep having to check. I'm like, do we have two more? Do we have three more? We have two more after this one. Um, yeah. So this is the third to last. Whatever. You know what I mean. This is Harry Potter Abridged. You were right. You clicked correctly. Um, and we are in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and we have reached chapter 16, which is, how do we say, eponymous. It is entitled The Chamber of Secrets. It is, no, it's not. The title would be, what do you call this? I mean, it's not exactly the full title, but it's the part that changes in the title. What's the name for that? Whatever. This is that chapter. Aptly named because that's where we're headed, as you might have gathered from the title of the novel or having read it 20 times before. Whatever. Um, anyway, we just left off with Harry finally like having the I say finally after that traumatic incident where they nearly died in the forest. Harry comes to the realization that, well, at least the strong suspicion that the girl that was killed by the monster and the previous time that the chamber was opened 50 years ago, um, that person would be that person is likely Moaning Myrtle, who never left the bathroom. And so we start the next chapter here with them being like, kind of like, shit, man, all those times we were in there, and like now we can't get away from teachers. We were like herded everywhere we go. Like it's impossible. We're never gonna get a chance to go talk to her. And of course, the mandrakes are coming along, so it's not gonna be long now before people are woke up anyway. Fitting to get woke up in Hogwarts. Um, let's see. So, anyway, so they're like kind of obsessing about everything to do with the Chamber of Secrets right now, and then like 10 minutes into their Transfiguration class, McGonagall's like, BTW, exams in a week, and everybody's like, what? Oh, which, if you're gonna still have them, like, is really a week ahead of time like the right time to remind them? Like you're the teacher, you're supposed to have this under control. Like, shouldn't that have been given out like months in advance, or at least like some reminders as they got closer? Besides a week from now, are you saying that you too, teacher, were a bit distracted and distraught as well? Well then, anyway. Funny thing about those exams, but we'll get there later. Anyway, so yeah, they all kind of freak out, and so McGonagall like kind of reminds them, which I mean, rightly so, but still, like that 1 week is just, it's a short timeline. Is all I'm saying. You can do a fair amount though, right? But so she's like, but that's the whole point of keeping school open with all this insanity going on right now, is that you get your education, which, while it's understandable that the students would be a little shocked, it's also understandable what McGonagall's saying. That's how this works. They're children and she's not. You feel for both of them. Anyway, and so she's like, I trust that you're all revising hard, which revising means studying, if you're speaking, New English, or whatever you call that shit that we talk over here in America. Um, And so yeah, Harry can't believe it either. It's not like just not everybody else in the class. Harry's like, holy shit, exams? Fuck. Okay, great. Which I mean makes sense because I mean it hasn't been more of a like distressing year for anybody than Harry. I mean even Hermione's situation really sucks, but she's also petrified, so she's never gonna remember it. Still sucks. Don't get me wrong. Like bad, but it's different than like if she was like in physical pain or being tortured or something like that. Anyway, so and so yeah, that's she goes on about the education bit, which I just enumerated. And Harry's like trying to think about like what did I learn this year, and of course he can't think of anything. Like the way she writes about their education, like you really have to pay attention to like catch on that they actually do learn some shit because a lot of times like Harry and Ron spend time being like, "What? Huh? I don't remember any of that." And Hermione's like, "Didn't you read it?" And they're like, Maybe." But you read, so it's just like that a lot. But there are times, because I've been kind of like trying to pay attention to that too when I've been listening, when I think about it anyway. Like, it's easy to like get the impression that they're just like incredibly too underqualified to do anything ever. But like, that becomes less and less and less of an issue. Like, not only in their schooling, but also with obviously their extracurricular activities later on. But even in the context of school, she just doesn't, because it would be boring really, I guess. She doesn't really describe that. I mean, she describes enough about like what their homework is, but like as far as like certain things that they practice, it's not until it's like important for Harry to use it in a task in the Triwizard Tournament in the fourth book for them to actually like talk about them actually practicing a spell like on their own in a empty classroom type of shit. If I'm not mistaken, anyway. Right. Do 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 do. And so yeah, right now they're just kind of like, and Ron looks, kind of terrified too. I mean, because he does lean on Hermione a little too much, and his crutch is petrified. So, yeah. And Ron's like, imagine me taking exams with this fucking broken wand, which is a whole other issue. And it starts whistling loudly, that's truly bizarre. So, what else? Ah, yes, and then so like a few days on after that, McGonagall makes the announcement before breakfast in the Great Hall that the mandrakes are ready, and everybody who was attacked will be revived. When does she say? Tonight. So it's that day. It's like 3 days before their exams. And of course, she's like, hopeful that one of them will be able to identify their attacker, which would, is a reasonable thing to hope. But of course, that doesn't mean that Harry and Ron aren't going to try and figure it out before tonight anyway, just cuz. But at first, Ron's like, well, it won't even matter then that we never got a chance to speak to Moaning Myrtle. Hermione will know everything, which, well, we'll find out in a minute. Hermione definitely had figured some things out. Ron's like, it might be nicer to just like wait until after the exams to wake her up, because it's just gonna be cruel 3 days before. Anyway, and so then Ginny shows up on the spot looking uncomfortable, and she's kind of like working herself up to say something, and Harry's like, yeah, it reminds me of somebody, the way she's sitting there and like kind of rocking back and forth. And finally he realizes that she's reminding him of Dobby before he was about to like say something, usually about like the Malfoys or something like that, something he wasn't allowed to say. And he's having to work himself up, and she's doing the same thing. And Ron's like, "What is it? What?" And she's like, and then right before she's able to kind of like muster the full effort that it's going to take to say what she's about to say, which, based on what we learn later, there's like legit reason for this hesitation, even though it does create like sort of a dramatic bit of tension here to have it cut off. But yeah, right as she's about to finally like get up the full gumption necessary, and they're asking her if it's something about the Chamber of Secrets, and she's like, and then Percy like shows up on the spot, and he's like, "If you're done, I'll take that spot, Jenny. Thanks very much. I just came off patrol duty." Um, cool me, I'm cool. I'm Percy. I am head boy. Um, and so Jenny like runs off. And Ron's like, "God damn it, Percy! Like, she was just about to like give us some good information. She saw something." And Percy goes into guilty mode, and he's like, "Oh no, that's nothing. No, it's basically." And then we find out that Jenny walked in on him. Well, he doesn't say what, but obviously something that he would find embarrassing, which we learn later. Was kissing. We can just say that. It's fine. Yeah. But anyway, Percy's like super embarrassed, and he's like, "I thought she would keep her word, and she said she wouldn't say anything." And Ron tries to get him to tell her, but Percy's not. He just changes the subject. And then we have another scene. And in this scene, they are moving around the castle, and they're like, well, they know that, like, they might find out tomorrow or later that night that everything they need to know, but, if the chance to get to Myrtle comes up, well, they wouldn't pass it up because, detectives. Anyway, so they are they're being led down the hall by Lockhart, and he's all still rambling on about how everybody's gonna say it was Hagrid when they wake up, which surely he like knows better, right? Like, how does he actually expect somebody to say that? Like, he's a strange one, that Lockhart. Because I said it before, like, he offers to do things when he could like totally like just let somebody else do it and not have to like show off the fact that he's inept, but he continuously does in sort of weird ways. Because there's no way on earth that people are gonna wake up and say it's Hagrid. I'm like, does he really believe that? Somehow I don't think so, but I don't know. Anyway, so he's like complaining about the security measures, and Harry's like, "Yeah, the security measures are stupid." And he's like, "Huh." And Ron's like, "What?" "Oh, yeah, stupid. That's right. You could just let us go from here. We got it. We only got a little ways to go." And he's like, "Yeah, good idea. I'm irresponsible and stupid. Go on." And so that's what happens. And he goes off back to his class, and Ron's like, "Yeah, gonna do his hair more like." And so they immediately make a beeline for Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and just as they're coming down that corridor, they hear McGonagall call their names, and they're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, man, we're just trying to, like, get to the bottom of this shit." So she's like, "What in the?" And they're like, we were Hermione, going to see Hermione. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We don't sound suspicious at all." But they managed to pull it off in a little less awkward of a fashion than my mimicry. And McGonagall actually believes them, and so she's like, "Oh, you're going to see your friend. You miss her. Of course you do. yeah, this is hard for you. And she's like, just go ahead. And like, they're like, wow, like, that was amazing. But also, like, damn, that's not the reaction we were expecting. But, when the alternative is getting in trouble by McGonagall, you still have to feel like you came off better for the situation. So they're like, all right, I guess we'll go off to the hospital wing then and go see Hermione, who's petrified. And so Pomfrey lets them in because they have permission. I guess it's one of those things that would just be too easy to verify that they wouldn't. She believes them just off of their word. But she's also like, there's really no point in talking to a petrified person. And they're like, yeah, after she goes away. So they're, yeah, she's just frozen there. But of course, that's not what they were trying to do. But fate has landed them in an interesting situation, and they're just sitting there thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, Harry notices in Hermione's clenched fist that she is holding a piece of paper that's scrunched up. And Ron's like, "Oh shit, get it out, get it out." So they kind of like block Madame Pomfrey's view, and Harry has to spend a little bit of time working at it, but he manages to retrieve this piece of paper without tearing it. It takes several tense minutes, however long that is. Anyway, so then they flatten it out, and on this piece of paper, there is an entry from basically probably an encyclopedia or like maybe even Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Who knows? It says, well, yeah, we can read part of this, right? Yeah, sure. Of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land, there is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk. And then it goes on and talks about it being the king of serpents, and that it can reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, which suits the story well, and is also born under very suspicious circumstances, hatched from a chicken's egg beneath a toad. That's what it says. It says that it can, obviously it can kill with its deadly and venomous fangs, but however, it also has a murderous stare. So we begin to wonder a bit about like what's happened up to this point. But yeah, anybody fixed with the beam of its eyes shall suffer instant death. Then we get mention of the fact that spiders flee before it, for it is their mortal enemy. So we understand what Aragog was saying now. And the basilisk only flees from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it. And, of course, we saw Hagrid with a dead rooster earlier in the book. So Hermione, even in stasis, has sort of saved the day before she's even been woken up. Because she's, well, they still don't know everything they need to know. But they've learned a lot. They now know that the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets is most likely in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They know what animal it is that has been getting out of the chamber. But Ron's like, but what about how is it getting around the school? And Hermione has written conveniently, because if she saw them in person, she probably would have just told them and not showed it to them on a piece of paper, but she wrote it because maybe she's... Actually, you know what? I will give... If anybody in this story might be like, well, just in case I get attacked on the way back, I'll write it on here so that they can find it in my hand. Like that, it seems improbable in most cases, but Hermione is actually smart enough, and we see through the way that she plans other things, much like she planned the whole Polyjuice situation I wouldn't put it past her, is all I'm saying. I would not put it past her. Anyway, so Hermione has written the word pipes, which obviously indicates that the basilisk was able to use the plumbing, the extremely overlarge plumbing. And so what is up with that? Like, I mean, yeah, it's a big castle, but as we're about to see, like, the plumbing is, in fact, or at least a lot of the pipes are basilisk-sized pipes. Now, I guess you could argue that maybe when the school was being built, that Slytherin was the one who volunteered to do the plumbing bit of the castle or something. I don't know. Maybe he, decided early on that he was going to have this monster in there, regardless of, before the split with Gryffindor and all that. Who knows? Maybe he made magical modifications to it before he left. Maybe they did need big pipes for reasons that I don't have any, knowledge of. I don't know. Anyway, so they put it all together, and of course they also understand that this is the other pieces, that this is why Harry only can hear the voice, because he understands Parseltongue. Of course, one could ask, yes, they could, how is it that Harry hears a voice and Ron and Hermione don't hear anything? Like, they don't hear a hissy sound or any of the things that they would hear in person. And one might be able to rebut that, kind of, and say that through the walls, the hissy part of the sound would not travel as well, because technically, if you know much about audio, high frequencies are easier to stop than low ones, and a stone wall would be pretty effective at stopping a lot of them above a certain point, which would account for all the shit, or most of it anyway. So who knows? I don't know. We're just picking it apart. And so then Harry also comes to so there's just conclusion after conclusion here. The next conclusion being that the reason why nobody's died is because no one somehow, by amazing fortune, nobody up to this point has looked at the basilisk directly in the eye. And why it only petrified them and was okay with that is a little bit beyond me. I mean, I guess that maybe this is just sort of like Teenage Riddle's MO. Oh, wait, was that a spoiler? It might have been. But what? How does he I mean, what does the basilisk eat otherwise, other than maybe the occasional vermin? How does Riddle control it well enough to keep it from eating or further attacking these people that it petrifies? I mean, it's easy pickings once they're frozen. It's like person sickle. Petrified person sickle. Just things that one thinks about sometimes. Anyway, yes, so Colin sees it through his camera, which is somehow on just enough glass to stop him from being killed. And probably it's just the one eye too, but whatever. Magic. Let's see. And the film too, not just the glass. That's right. And it burned the film. Justin saw the basilisk through nearly headless Nick, which, even though he's kind of insignificant, was still some sort of entity, I guess. But anyway, and that's why Nick turned all black. He did catch the brunt of it, as it were, in ghost form. And Hermione and Penelope Clearwater were using a mirror, because Hermione had just figured out the mystery. And so, of course, anybody she ran into, she would advise them to do what she was doing. And then finally, the cat, Mrs. Norris, looked in the water, which actually is fairly logical because cats often there have their heads down if they're drinking water, which maybe she was lapping up the water. It's legit. Um, so the cat saw a reflection, not a direct shot. Um, Even more curious though that the cat didn't get eaten, but was instead hung up. So yeah, I guess that's the thing that our heir of Slytherin wanted to taunt, not just to terrorize right away. Like it had to be a slow build. Um, why not, right? I guess. I mean, if you're that's how you that's the road you want to go down in life. Whew, good job. Um, right, and so he's going back through it all. I don't need to go back through it all. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, and so yes, Moaning Myrtle's bathroom is where they. So yeah, they come to that conclusion as well. Um, and Harry's like, well, that means there's got to be another Parselmouth around because that's what's controlling the basilisk, and I'm not doing it, obviously. Which is it's interesting how it all ends up playing out. But we only have two chapters. I'm not going to spoil everything. Um, like Dumbledore said, we already knew the who. We just want to know the how, and the how is yet to be revealed. So, anyway, so they're like, all right, you know what? For once in our lives, especially without Hermione to help us anymore, we're not going. They don't say that part. I'm just. They're like, we're going to be responsible. We're going to go to McGonagall. And they're like, let's go to the staff room. It's almost end of the class. Maybe she'll go in there after class is over. So they get into the staff room. There's nobody in there. And they're like just sort of standing around. They don't even want to sit. They're like too like psyched up with all their new info. But the bell never rings, and instead they hear McGonagall all magnified, all sonorous up, talking through the entire school. And she's instructing all the students to return to their house dormitories and all teachers to the staff room immediately. So and they're like, oh no, not another attack. Like, we just figured out, like, what the deal is. And Ron's like, should we leave? And Harry's like, no, actually, let's, see that wardrobe over there? It's got stuff in it, but we can hide behind the stuff, and let's see what they're talking about, and then we could pop out. They don't really say it, but that's what they would have to do. Kind of just, well, not pop out, but just like show up on the scene after everybody's talked. But they're like, let's find out what they're gonna say, and then we'll tell them what we know. But I guess the point is that if they do it this way, then the teachers won't have much of a choice but to listen to them. Whereas if they if the teachers come in right now, they'll be like, leave, go to your dormitory, and they'll be like, but and they'll be like, go. So that's the plan. Why not break another little rule-ish type of thing without actually making it be a specific rule? I doubt there's like a don't hide in the wardrobe in the staff room rule specifically. And so yeah, McGonagall comes in and she's like, well, yeah, this sucks. Somebody's been taken into the chamber. And Snape is actually the first one to ask, like, how do you know? How can you be sure? And McGonagall says that the heir of Slytherin wrote another message on the wall, and it says, her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. And Flitwick starts to cry. And Madam Hooch then asks which student it is, and then we find out it's Ginny. And Ron just slides down next to Harry in the wardrobe. Somehow they don't hear him. I mean, it says silently, but nonetheless, like it wouldn't really truly be silent. But whatever. There's everybody's preoccupied right now. Um, so McGonagall says that they're gonna have to send everybody home. We're shutting this fucking thing down. This is the end. Hogwarts. This is the end of Hogwarts. Dumbledore always said. ... Boom. Here comes fucking jackass Lockhart, and like at the beyond the last minute, just like, yeah. Anyway, and so he's like, yeah, sorry, it was just what I miss? What's happening, ladies and gents? And everybody's like staring daggers at him, and Snape actually gets one like good moment here where he's like, just the man. The man indeed. You are the man. And so he explains to Lockhart that somebody's been taken. And he's like, so they all start ganging up on him. They're like, that's right. Weren't you just saying you've known where it was all along, and that you knew what was inside of it, and that you're sorry you hadn't had a crack at the monster yet, and it's your turn. You are up to bat. And he's like, oh, like that for a while, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I'll just go to my office and get my stuff together. Makes me think of those scenes in Family Guy where people are like, or The Simpsons, and they're like, I'm just gonna go out to my car, out of here. But he doesn't immediately disappear. Just yeah. All right, let's move forward. So McGonagall's like, all right, well, now that jackass is out of our way, so she sends all the heads of house back to the dormitories to tell the students that they're going home tomorrow, and everybody's just off to do their thing. And so Harry and Ron go back to the common room, and they just end up telling Fred and George and Percy too, and they're just all like fucking super bummed, because I mean, it's fine, well and good when you know what's going to happen in the book, but at this point, like, it's just the second book, and like it doesn't look so good for Ginny. I mean, like if you just look at it from a standpoint of like, there's probably a giant serpent, and it's only been petrifying its victims up to this point, but now with a message that says her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. I mean, yeah, as I say, not looking so good for Ginny. So they're all like, fuck, this is the worst, because it kind of would be without the kinda. And the afternoon like just drags on. I mean, and it's just like everybody's there, but nobody's talking. And then finally, Harry's like, she knew something, like that. Whatever it wasn't about Percy. She knew something, and Ron is totally fucking right. And he's like, that's why she was taken. Like she's not. She's pure blood. That's the only reason that she would be taken. And again, he's absolutely right. Well, I mean, not exactly, but. Okay, fine. There is an alternative reason too. Fine. But it's related. He's still on the right path. Anyway. And Ron's like trying to ask Harry, like, do you think that she might not be dead, but he can't get the word dead out, which, I mean, is understandable. And Harry's just like, fuck, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, and so instead, he's like, you know what? Oh, actually, you know what? No, Ron does. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, this is Ron's idea. He's like, We should go see Lockhart. Because even though, and I don't know if this is just their age to like, because I feel like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't as obvious as I feel like it is because I know better, but like it seemed to me like Lockhart wasn't really fitting to go actually do anything. Even if you weren't really sure what he was going to do, or if he was going to go anywhere or anything like that, you didn't really expect him to actually like attempt to go face the monster. Like that's not the sense you get from him when he leaves. But for whatever reason, they're like, well, I mean, he's the one who's supposed to deal with it. So I mean, I guess, well, there's another way to look at it is that, like I was just saying a little while ago, he doesn't seem to back down from trying magic, even though he seems to be shitty at it. I think I said that earlier. Like yeah, I think I did. I don't get it. I just, but anyway, but because he's done that, in a way, he has given them reason to think that maybe he would try this anyway, and that maybe like this is the kind of thing that he's actually good at, because they're skeptical of the books, but they don't want to believe that he's a complete liar, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, they're also just sitting there with absolutely shit to do in the common room as well. And so Ron's like, we should go tell him. We know where the chamber is most likely, and we can we can help him out. We can give him the info he doesn't have. And Harry's like, oh, okay. I mean, he doesn't really know what else to do. So, and it is something. So they're like, all right, let's do it. So they head off to Lockhart's office. Never mind that nobody's in the hallway for whatever reason. I guess maybe they just feel at this point that everybody's so scared they're just going to stay in their common room. So they make it to Lockhart's office. I don't know how far away or how close it is to where where their common room is. But anyway, they make it there without any hindrances and no invisibility cloak. And so they knock, and he opens the door like just a tiny, tiny bit. And he's like, "Oh, it's you." And so he opens it just a little bit more. He's like, I'm really busy." And they're like, well, we got something we'd like to tell you. We want to help you out. And he's like, see, what had happened was, okay, fine. So he lets them in, and when they come into the office, it's like mostly stripped. Like all the paintings are down, the posters are being rolled up, all of his robes are in boxes. Everything's just like fucking jumbled together in boxes everywhere. And they're like, are you leaving? And he's like, well, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Sorry, gotta run. And they're like, bro, you're the defense against the dark arts teacher, which is kind of funny. Like they always do this. Like, I mean, I guess it makes sense, like from a standpoint of like, who's the expert in each field? Well, obviously the person who's teaching that subject, but that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of cross-discipline people, that know a lot of things. Anyway, it's like they're always like, it's like just like with the spells in the first book, like each one is like something that relates to the subject they teach. Each obstacle to get to the Philosopher's Stone. When it could have just as easily been a mix-up, like to make it more confusing, or just for people to do like things that they were really good at or whatever. In addition to what they teach, I mean. But whatever. But Ron's like, bro, my sister, they took her into the thing, and he's like, yeah, that is unfortunate. However, also don't really give a fuck. I mean, he doesn't say that, but he does. And they're like, but you're that teacher guy for that subject, and this is what it's all about. And he's like, well, when I took the job, I didn't, not in the description, I didn't think I'd actually have to do anything. And they're like, you're running away. And Harry even says, after all the stuff you did in your books, whereas Ron has already said, like, says he does. But Lockhart actually admits to it now. He cops to it. He's like, books can be misleading. And Harry's actually like holding him to like the standard right now, even though he should already know better. Not that he doesn't deserve to be held to the standard, but I'm just saying like it's not like it's really new information. Like, didn't you suspect him already, Harry? But Harry's all like, you wrote him. And Lockhart's all like, come on, dude. Think about it. And then he like starts talking about the different people who actually did the things in the books that he wrote about. And he's like, oh, they're ugly and they're not, they have no dress sense and they're weird looking and blah, blah, blah. So Harry's still like, so he's got to enumerate his crimes. He's like, so you've just been taking credit for what a bunch of other people have done. And like he just admitted to that. Yes, that's exactly what he did. And Lockhart's all trying to make it seem like it's like, it's not that simple. I had to like, get him to tell me their story so then I could write about them. And then I put a memory charm on him. And we find out that even though he's abysmal at virtually every other kind of magic, he somehow specializes in memory charms, which I don't expect are very easy to perform. I mean, I'm just going to say, and to like get it right. Because like, isn't Hermione the only one of the trio that ever even performs them, or do the others do it in the seventh book and I've forgotten? Anyway, and so yeah, he's like, well, now that I've told you my secret, I'm going to show you how good I am with these memory charms. And he pulls out his wand, but Harry's like, no, you don't, Expelliarmus, bitch. And so, yeah, and then Lockhart gets knocked backwards and his wand flies and Ron catches it and throws it out the window, which I'm like, you should have just, well, actually, no, that was the right move, Ron. We're going to say that because what happens later, if there had been another wand, things could have been problematic. Anyway, so, and Harry actually gives credit to Snape for teaching him that trick in the dueling club. He's like, you should have never let him teach that one. And it's funny because that's like the beginning of Harry's Expelliarmus career. It's his favorite spell. But sometimes when things work for you, you're like, don't question why. And that's pretty much the way that works. So I think Harry even says that later, but not exactly that, but basically that. And so Lockhart's like now at wand point by Harry and broken wand Ron. Kenobi. 1-1 Kenobi. Oh man. Anyway, so Lockhart actually like he's such a like wuss basically that a coward, whatever word you suits you, a craven, that he actually lets them like lead him out. He's like, well, we know where the Chamber of Secrets is, even if you don't. So this way, motherfucker. And he's like, okay. And he could totally like shout or like make a scene and people would probably come running. But for some reason, he actually like freezes up and lets them do this. Maybe because he is planning to like double cross them the whole time. And he's like, well, maybe I can learn something and actually like look like the hero after all. Yeah, why did I think of that before? Sheesh. Because I'm like, how would he, like, just today, I'm like, why would he go with them? Like, they don't even know how to do any, like, dangerous curses yet. It's not like they can really hurt him. Not much, anyway, I wouldn't think. I mean, he shoots sparks at him or some shit, but, I mean, they're second years. Anyway, so yeah, that makes more sense. I think that he was actually planning to get a certain distance in, maybe, and maybe not. Maybe he is just that fucking much of a scaredy pants right now, and that he's just like not thinking because of how aggressive they're being. I don't know. Either one's possible. Anyway, so they march him off to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and again, because for whatever reason the teachers aren't patrolling anymore, I guess because of the absolute fear, like we talked about earlier, they get to the bathroom without any interference, and oh yeah, it does even say that Lockhart is shaking, so I guess he is like totally in like cowardice mode right now. What house was Lockhart in? I meant to look this up and I forgot. Like you can almost he seems like a Slytherin in a way, but I can't imagine him actually being in Slytherin. I feel like he's like a wizard from another house just gone bad. Like, because it's not like there aren't arrogant, especially Gryffindors. Anyway, so they get to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom and they ask her how she died, and suddenly she's like the happiest they've ever seen her, and she's like, "Oh, it was dreadful." Um, she's something else, and so she explains that she died right where she is, and that her not friend Olive Hornby, who she mentions a few times in this one book, was teasing her about her glasses, and so she was in there, and then she heard somebody come in, and she thought it was like somebody else coming in to make fun of her, but it turns out that it was a boy, and he was speaking a weird language, and she's like, "What the hell, a boy?" So she opens the door, and as she does, she dies, and Harry's like, "Well, how?" She's like, "I don't know. Just saw a pair of great big yellow eyes," and so what I don't get is if her body started, or like her soul ghost thing started floating away right after she seized up, how did her ghost not see the basilisk, even if all she saw was big yellow eyes when her body ceased to work? Like, was there like a delay period where the basilisk slid back off into the chamber? Like, I don't understand how she didn't see the basilisk. Let's see. She saw, and then I was floating away. Oh, wait. Maybe there is. Okay. I still don't see, like, in that initial float away how she didn't see it. Because she says, I floated away, and then she's like, and then I came back again. So, like, in theory, maybe she went, like, somewhere where she made that choice that they talk about later, where you, like, decide whether you're going to go, quote, unquote, on, or if you're going to come back and be a ghost. But I still feel like if she floated away and she remembers floating away, how did she not see the goddamn basilisk? Anyway, whatever. And then she talks about how she tortured that girl, Hornby. And so Harry's like, well, where did you see these eyes? And she points in the direction of a sink, which I guess that's another point. Okay, all right, there's an explanation for that. If the basilisk wasn't all the way out, if all you really could kind of see were its eyes and then you kind of floated away, all it would have to do is back off just a little bit and be completely out of the light and not be visible to her floating spirit self, which also would be preoccupied with dying or, having just died or whatever. So, I mean, there's all that, too, to process. Whatever. So Harry goes over to the sink, and he's like, huh, all right. And so he starts looking around all over it, underneath the pipes and all of this. And finally, he sees a little inscription, like a hand-scratched illustration of a snake, a tiny little snake, on one of the copper taps. And Moaning Myrtle's like, yeah, that's never worked, by the way. And Ron sees what it is, and he's like, Harry, say something in Parseltongue. And Harry's like, see, the thing about that is that I can't just do it. It's like I have to see a snake in order to do it. And anyway, so private joke. But anyway, so he's like, how do I? And so he like looks at the snake and he like tries to say it, and Ron's like, nope, English. And so he's like, So he has to like kind of like squint or like hold his head a certain kind of way and make it look like it's moving with the candlelight, and then he finally like is able to sort of like imagine it is a snake. And he tries saying open up again, and this time it opens up because it comes out all hissing and weird, and he recognizes it for what it is, even though he doesn't understand how he can do it, but he does do it. So, and then the sink, in fact, sank. It's anyway. So then there's like this big, as I mentioned before, oversized pipe, big enough for a person or a giant basilisk to slide into, and they're like, all right, well, this is what we're gonna do. Because, like, Harry's like, well, I mean, we found it, so we're going. And Ron's like, well, then I'm going too. And Lockhart's like, well, good luck. And they're like, you can go first. And Lockhart is still apparently scared. And so he's like, oh, okay. And so they kind of, like, get him to go up there, and then they sort of give him a little push. Ron does, and he goes sliding off, and so then they follow him, and basically it ends up being like a big, like, giant playground slide where it levels off at the bottom, and they end up in like this big low chamber. And so we're kind of reached like the trapdoor version 2, which is the trapdoor is or down the trapdoor, I mean to say, or through the trapdoor. Whatever the fuck it is, you know what I mean. It's like the third to the last chapter, or second or third to last chapter in the previous book, Philosopher's Stone. Anyway, so they're and we even get the direct quote where instead of, because Hermione's not here, in Philosopher's Stone, Hermione says after she drops down, we must be miles under the school. And Harry, after they've done all this sliding and sliding and sliding and sliding, and they land in this chamber, Harry's like, we must be miles under the school. Like, word for word, I'm almost positive that it's exactly the same line. And Ron's like, yeah, probably under the lake, because everything is looking kind of like damp and slimy and shit. And I'm like, wow, under the lake? That seems like not likely, but it's possible, sure. So Harry lights his wand, and of course Ron doesn't even attempt or mention it, because we all know why. And so they're like, all right, let's go. And so they start heading off. And so they're like walking on like rat skulls, and and there's like tiny animal bones everywhere, because obviously the basilisk has to eat something. And so then finally they like, after going for a little ways, they see what looks like the outline of basically a giant serpent, and they start creeping up, and they're like, maybe it's asleep, because it's not moving. And then when they finally get just close enough, they realize that it's a snake skin, not an actual snake, but they now have a legit idea of the size and color of this particular basilisk, which is a vivid poisonous green. And at that moment, as they're like kind of goggling at the specks on said giant snake, Lockhart does a little. Oh, well, I'm sorry. First he goes. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I sometimes when I listen to the chapter and reread it and everything, it's like it's almost too well imprinted on my mind, so I'm not staring at the page, and then I get like ahead of myself and skip something by accident. Anyway, he first Lockhart falls to his knees because he's like either legitimately shocked or feigning shock or who knows, and then Ron's like, "Get up!" and he points his wand at Lockhart, and Lockhart like gets back up, but then he like dives at Ron and like knocks him to the ground and like grabs his wand and somehow doesn't notice that the wand is broken and spello taped together. Which, by the way, if I didn't mention this in an earlier episode, for the Americans who might not know this, in England, what we refer to as either Scotch tape or clear tape or magic tape in some cases, that comes in the small dispensers, the clear plastic stuff, they call it cellotape in England. So the spello tape is a takeoff on that. I'm sure most of you probably know that, but there's probably maybe one or two people who don't. So I didn't at one point. I mean, I have for a while now, but I didn't originally when I started the books. So anyway, the more you know. And so, yeah, Lockhart attempts to obliviate their memories, like, and this time it's clear that he's going for like, instead of just wiping away the memory of like, oh, I didn't do those things I wrote about in my books. He's like, I'm about to completely make you forget everything about everything, which is pretty fucked up if you think about it. I mean, Lockhart's not exactly a sympathetic character, but you don't think of him as being. I didn't think of him as being this potentially monstrous until this point. Like I understand like that he's scared and that he doesn't want to like do what he's doing or whatever. But he could just he could do anything. He doesn't have to like wipe their memories forever. That's like it's pretty effed. Um, so anyway, but of course Ron's wand is broken and it's prone to backfiring. So it it completely backfires, and not only does it backfire, like it does it like with an additional like explosive force, which causes like a big bunch of the tunnel to cave in. And so, of course, this creates the separation we need for Harry to finish this adventure alone. So Ron and Lockhart, who is now kind of stunned and stupid, are on one side of the barrier, the getting back to the entrance to the chamber side, and Harry is on the danger side. And so they get confirmation through yelling that Ron is okay and that Lockhart got blasted with the wand. And Ron is kicking Lockhart to get him to leave him alone. And Ron's like, what now? Like, we can't get through here. It'll take forever. And Harry's like, well, I guess I'll do this because, that's what I do. And he's like, and it's the old, if I'm not back in an hour. And Ron's like, I'll move rocks so that there's room for you to get back through. We know how this book ends. Come on, boy. And so Harry's like, right, see you in a bit, which is basically what he and Hermione say to each other somewhere in that neighborhood. And oh, but Ron doesn't say, oh, Harry, be careful. Oh, that's right. That's what she did. Right. That's what I get for skipping ahead again. He actually says, and Harry's like, see you in a bit. And so they like cut that joke short. Not joke, but they make a joke of cutting that line short so that Ron can't say exactly what Hermione said in the first book. Uh, I like that. That's I like that kind of humor. Anyway, and so Harry heads on, and it's like, pretty fucking nerve wracking at this point. And so he's just like, he's tingling all over unpleasantly. And he's like simultaneously wanting to have to quit walking, and then also dreading what he gets to when he can't walk any further. So that's like, a shitty place to be, real ye old rock and hard place, as they put it, and somewhat literally, because he's in a stone tunnel after all. So, bum, 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 bum. And so he gets finally at the end. I mean, he gets around a bend, and he sees a solid wall, and there's these giant carved serpents in the walls on either side of the door. I think it is. Yeah, and Harry's like, it's like there's no need for him to pretend that these were real because their eyes look alive. So there's like some sort of magic in their eyes. So he doesn't have to think too hard to guess what the next step is, since he can see snakes again. And so he says open in a low, faint hiss, and the wall cracked. Oh, so it's not the door. The whole fucking wall is the door, right? And so the serpents part as the wall cracks open, and the wall doors slide out of sight. And Harry walks inside, shaking from head to foot. And that is how that chapter ends. It is really a transition chapter, but I'm not going to do two in a row right now because I still feel like we're, let's see, where are we looking? Like, oh yeah, we're over the hour mark. That's, yeah. We still took plenty of tangents and said all kinds of stuff and stopped and stuttered and all that good shit. So, yep, two more? Is that what I said? God, I am the worst. Yes, two more. That's what I thought. Two more chapters, and we are through this thing and off to the prisoner of Azkaban. So, thank you. Oh, let's see. Wait a minute. Let's not run off too quickly. Let's go back to the YouTube and click on the last video. Wait a minute. Let's get... I didn't prepare. I forgot about this part. But I do like doing this part. It's nice to get to have the little dialogue. Let's see. Did we... Hang on. Make sure... Oh, in 2 videos ago, we learned that, and I'm just, since we don't have a ton of people here, like, I don't mind just, like, individually calling everybody out, because why not? If there were, I understand, like Swift can't always do stuff like that. He's got, like, thousands of people, but, I don't pretend or care about all that insanity. And I mean, sure, I guess it would be cool, but that's not the point. The point is that we all are here for the same reason, and that's the important part. So, Judy mentioned that she is not on the Facebook, which, hey, I love the Squad on Facebook, but Facebook itself, I don't blame you. Yes, and she is was a Schwifter first, not, she didn't like randomly find this somewhere else. So, welcome in a way, because I've only seen you commenting in the last few episodes. I'm assuming you've been around, but, and if you commented on older stuff, then it's entirely possible if I missed it, or just I'm forgetting even, for that matter. And then on the last video, let's see. Well, Judy again mentioned that it would have been cool, and I somewhat agree. If in the Battle of Hogwarts, if the car, Mr. Weasley's car, and Fluffy had joined the battle, Fluffy. I really feel like Fluffy is the product of that first book naivety of like not really thinking that this is going to take off, and so you can kind of like be a little more fanciful because like I mean I get it's a magic world, so somebody could in theory shrink Fluffy to a manageable size. I guess that's possible. But I really don't think that the full sized Fluffy would go over very well in most places. Like there just aren't a lot of safe places to release a Fluffy like creature on the world. Even in a open wild area, like it would still terrorize like most animals. So I don't know. It's hard for me to know like what might have been done with Fluffy post, Philosopher's Stone. The car, though, I actually like. I love that idea of it like running down spiders and maybe who knows what else, like just kind of rampaging around the grounds, like just trying to take out Death Eaters or anybody that's working for them or whatever. And maybe it like eventually like gets like smashed by a giant or something, but like it does like a lot of stuff for the good side first or something. But alas, we got a lot in the battle. I mean, we got a lot, but we didn't get that. So yeah, I think that covers everything, and we will see you hopefully very soon with our for our penultimate chapter in the Chamber of Secrets. Yes, indeed. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day part, and peace.